Hi, I'm Micah Halpern. Thank you for joining me today as I do some thinking out loud. Our first segment is called Background Briefing. The first thing I've been thinking about is young Jews in the United States sympathizing with Hamas. Israel and the Jewish people have a serious perception problem. That fact is known to all who care. But in this case, the bigger and less known problem is one of self-perception. In the United States, a significant percentage of young Jews are sympathizing with Hamas. 37%, get that number, 37% of Jews between the ages of 14 and 18 sympathize with an enemy actively working to murder as many Jews as possible and publicly vowing the destruction of Israel. The phenomenon is so befuddling, it takes time to set in. I had to read the headline several times because I thought it was a typo or an editorial mistake. I then ran to the study commissioned by the Ministry for Diaspora Affairs and Combating Anti-Semitism in Israel. How can young Jews come to such an obtuse conclusion? The issue further complicating this puzzling fact is that the 662 young people studied between June 16th and July 23rd of 2024, 80% of them have visited Israel at least once. The study reveals an even more troubling reality, specifically for 14-year-olds. In the 14-year-old group, 60% felt sympathy for Hamas. As they get older, that sympathy number drops. For 18-year-olds, the Hamas sympathy rating is 10%. According to the study, 60% of the youth sympathize with the Palestinian cause. These are very significant findings. Maybe the study is wrong. If the findings are correct, the entire premise of focusing on Israel education has been mistaken, totally mistaken. The working assumption was that a solution to the floundering future of young Jews, especially in the United States, was sending them to Israel. That seeing Israel with their own eyes was a solution. And according to the study, however, it is not. Those who were studied saw the real Israel, and they exited peppered to criticize. They did not stop there. They actually joined the Hamas side. Some will retort, oh, but 94% of the teens feel a connection to Israel, and 94% want to foster a deeper connection to Israel through education. Those youth who were studied in the United States sympathize with Hamas are casting their lot with the murderers of Jews and of Israelis. It is absurd. However, when you look at those who went on birthright trips, the numbers tell a different story. The principle behind birthright was to get Jewish youth to Israel. Once there, they cannot help but be moved into a transformative relationship with the State of Israel and the Jewish people. Sounds perfect. Mega donors, Bronfman, Steinhardt, Adelson, as well as the Israeli taxpayers, contributed tens of millions of dollars, all in the hope that bringing young Jews to Israel will reinvigorate the Jewish people. They were investing in the future. The very first trip took place in 1999 of Birthright. At first, the target group of Jewish youth was ages 18 to 26. Then they raised the upper limit to 32. Most studies of Birthright show that participants, and in this case, let's say 16%, are more likely to marry Jews than non-participants. They are more committed to Jewish community. They are more committed to Jewish learning. They are more committed to Israel. How do we make sense of this new devastating study then? Maybe because these young people are more familiar with Israel and they are closer to Israel and hence more likely to criticize Israel. Some might say that criticism might come out of love. Remember, that is how former President Obama used to couch his scathing attacks against Israel, masquerading as a friend. Or maybe it's a Haaretz-like style criticism. That is, that their hatred for a certain dimension of Israel is so vitriolic that it colors every aspect of how they view Israel itself. Israel's leaders are so bereft of morality, they think, that everything they do is tainted with evil. They disagree with the policies of Israel. The study showed that more than 60% believe that Israel is perpetrating a genocide on the Palestinians. So how do we solve this critical and frightening issue? Start blasting out activities for 14 to 18-year-olds. That's the beginning. Create programs, games, activities, movies, music, computer games, shows, YouTube videos, social media campaigns. Send emissaries, teams, sports teams, acting groups, dancing and singing troupes, sports teams and exchanges. Hire hundreds, if not thousands of people to make, produce, and curate material for the internet and social media geared for and at 14 to 18-year-olds. Hire hundreds of social media influencers to push and promote creative material. Keep producing and keep making it new and creative. The content is essential. Aggressively campaign about Israel. Be cutting edge. This should be primarily fun, entertaining programming, but it should also have a nuanced educational objective. What I'm proposing is not easy, nor is it inexpensive. However, it is the only way that we can solve this problem by nipping it in the bud. Coming up next, points of view. First up is an editorial from the New York Post. The editors charge us with a mission. The editorial is entitled, "Remember the Names of the 19 Senators Who Voted to Block Arms to Israel." It is, of course, by the New York Post editorial board, published on November 22nd, 2024. Subtitled, "The Bills Filed by Senator Bernie Sanders Aim to Block $20 billion in U.S. arms, military, tank, and mortar rounds, and joint direct attack munitions for the Jewish state." This is how the editorial begins. On Wednesday, the Senate held a vote on 3 resolutions aimed at isolating Israel and kneecapping its defense, and 17 Democrats and 2 independents voted for them. Now we know who the snakes in the grass are. The bills filed by Senator Bernie Sanders aim to block $20 billion in arms, U.S. arms, military tank and mortar rounds, and joint direct attack munitions for the Jewish state. Now the editors name each of those who voted against helping Israel. These are their names, and I will read them also. Senators Dick Durbin of Illinois, Martin Heinrich, New Mexico, Mazie Hirono, Hawaii, Tim Kaine, Virginia, Bemre Lujan of New Mexico, Ed Markey, Massachusetts, Def Merkley, Oregon, Chris Murphy, Connecticut, John Ossoff, Georgia, Brian Schatz, Hawaii, Jean Shaheen, New Hampshire, Tina Smith, Minnesota, Chris Van Hollen, Maryland, Raphael Warnick, Georgia, Elizabeth Warren, Massachusetts, Peter Welch, Vermont, George Helmley, New Jersey, as well as Angus King from Maine, independent from Maine, and of course Sanders. Each voted in favor of at least one of the 3 bills, while Senator Tammy Baldwin voted present. It's important, this is me speaking, it's important to note that some Democrats voted to aid Israel. So the vote did not fall totally across party lines. The editors continue. Fine, other Democrats and every Republican voted the right way. But this was nearly half the Senate Majority Caucus, basically smearing Israel's war of self-defense. The Post editors now ask how the bill even came to the floor in the first place. You should know that the Senate Majority Leader, in this case Schumer, has the ability to scuttle any bill. So the editors ask, which begs the question, why did Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer let these anti-Israel resolutions make it to the floor in the first place? We can only conclude that he's that beholden to his party's hard left. Now the editors describe how Schumer's actions have also stymied the battle against Jew hatred on campus. They write that instead of having solid legislation against Jew hatred, he buried the legislation in the Defense Authorization Act with significantly watered down language. The editors write, meanwhile, Schumer for months refused to allow a floor vote on a bipartisan House-passed bill that would oblige the federal education department to get tough on colleges now turning a blind eye to anti-Semitism in and around those pro-Palestinian demonstrations. Instead, he's folding the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act into the Defense Authorization Act, badly weakening the message that the hate needs to end. Schumer loves to brag about how he protects Israel and the Jewish people, but apparently his party's anti-Israel wing comes first. The editorial concludes saying, remember these names on Election Day. The editors write, at least these 19 senators have now declared themselves. Every American who believes that Israel has the right to self-defense as any other nation should target each and every one of them for defeat at his or her next election. I could not agree more. We must gather supporters of Israel and make certain that they are elected and oust those who are bent on weakening Israel. This next column is from Ynet. It was published on November 27, 2024. It's entitled, Palestinian Leader Abbas Names Interim Successor in Case of Departure. Subtitled, Rahi Fatah tapped interim Palestinian Authority chairman until elections held. PA officials claim U.S.-Saudi pressure aims to reshape leadership, possibly preparing PA to govern Gaza post-war. This column is written by Einav Halabi. The column is extremely insightful. It outlines exactly the problems with the PA leadership of Abbas and any successor that might arise. This is how Halabi begins. Palestinian Authority, PA, Chairman Mahmoud Abbas on Wednesday named Rahi Fatah as his interim successor should he leave office. Fatah, 75, a former Speaker of the Palestinian Legislative Council, would serve as president for a 90-day transitional period until elections are held in accordance with Palestinian law. To say the obvious, this announcement came as a surprise to PA leadership. It is particularly difficult because they were totally in the dark, and some believe that they would be the ones tapped to become the next leader. The column continues. The decision surprised many within the PA, with officials noting Abbas had not consulted senior figures, including Hussein al-Sheikh, Secretary General of the PLO Executive Committee, who was seen as a contender for the presidency. Some officials speculated the move was influenced by a U.S.-Saudi initiative to reshape the PA, potentially positioning it to take over control of Gaza after the war. There is no doubt that there has been both U.S. pressure and Saudi pressure to change leadership, or at least have a transition set up so that there would not be a power vacuum should something happen to the 89-year-old Abbas. Speaking of Abbas, Halabi writes, the U.S. requested Abbas appoint a deputy who could assume leadership, which he saw as an effort to sideline him. One official said his decision ensures he remains central to PA's leadership. Halabi explains that there were other candidates. They were surprised. The column continues, 3 key candidates are seen as potential successors to Abbas. Mahmoud al-Alul, known for his hardline views, Jabril Rajoub, former security chief and sports administrator, and Mohammed Mustafa, the current prime minister, focused on economic reforms. The biggest issue with Abbas, you should note, is not his age at 89. His biggest problem is that he is seriously unpopular with the Palestinians. Halabi continues, while Abbas, 89, struggles with waning public support, some Palestinians view his rule as preferable to alternatives like Hamas, particularly after October 7th, Hamas attacks. However, analysts warn his eventual departure could trigger violent power struggles that may destabilize the PA. And you should know, the PA could collapse at any moment, and Israel is propping it up. The column begins to conclude in this way. Compounding the PA's challenges is long-standing Israeli political instability. Abbas's outreach to former Defense Minister Benny Gantz gave way to dealing with the government that imposed measures undermining the PA's economy, including bans on Palestinian workers. Finally now, the column asserts that Bibi and Israel weakened the PA and strengthened Hamas. Halabi writes and concludes, critics argue successive Israeli governments led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu weakened the PA while empowering Hamas, further eroding its authority in the West Bank. Coming up, commentary through cartoons where pictures tell the story. I want to show you 6 cartoons today, All these cartoons are extremely critical of Israel, especially Netanyahu. And Netanyahu, of course, represents Israel. This first cartoon is biting and seriously critique of Bibi and Israel itself. This cartoon comes from Salt Lake City. The cartoon asks, how many more maimed and orphaned children need there be so Bibi Netanyahu can cling to power and avoid answering for October 7th, happening on his watch? This, of course, is a play on how many people are needed to change a light bulb. Second is a biting, very ugly critique suggesting that Israel is just destroying everything in Gaza and Lebanon. In this cartoon of an Israeli tank, to the right is Gaza and to the left is Lebanon. Destruction everywhere. The person in the tank asks, "We miss anything?" Third up is Netanyahu sleeping on a huge pile of mattresses. At the very bottom is the ICC arrest warrant. The cartoon is suggesting that Bibi is the princess and the pea. In the eyes of the cartoonist, the warrant, as small as it is, really disturbs Israel's prime minister. This fourth cartoon is called Gaza Doctors. A doctor is standing over a patient with a candle to light and his stethoscope in his hand, and an Israeli drone dropping a bomb. Of course, destruction all around. This again is just a scathing attack on Israel. It's called Gaza Doctors. In this fourth cartoon, which is called Victory Arch, Israel, Lebanon, Hezbollah ceasefire, the arch has an inscription, Absolute Victory, on it, and a rocket is in its eye. Lebanon is totally destroyed, and the Israeli bulldozer is pulling the arch away, the Arch of Absolute Victory. Fifth up is a wanted poster of Bibi Netanyahu by the ICC, and Bibi is making fun of the ICC in the poster. And this last cartoon depicts U.S. Uncle Sam running after a rocket. And in the second panel, Uncle Sam split the rocket in two and created two stop signs. The cartoon was entitled Ceasefire Deal, Israel, Lebanon, U.S. War Rocket. The cartoonist wants that ceasefire very badly, and he wants it to stay and hold, not just in Lebanon, but also in Gaza. In a moment, more of my own perspective and a few predictions. Houthi leader Abdul Malik Badruddin al-Houthi addressed the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah, declaring that his group would not allow Gaza to stand alone. We continue to act across all domains and military fronts. Al-Houthi called the Yemenis to hold mass demonstrations to affirm their stance, express solidarity with the Palestinians, and celebrate Lebanon's efforts. Pope Francis said he planned to visit Turkey's Iznik next year for the anniversary of the First Council of the Christian Church. Italian news agency ANSA reported this. The early centuries of Christianity were marked by a debate about how Jesus could be both God and man. And the church decided on that issue at the First Council of Nicaea in 325. The city, now known as Iznik, is in the western area of Antalya, 150 kilometers or 100 miles southeast of Istanbul. In June, the Pope said that he wanted to go to the conference. In addition, the spiritual leader, the head of the world's Orthodox Christians, the ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew, had said also that the two men would meet and celebrate the important recurrence together, but no official confirmation has been made yet from either side. Hussein Salami, the commander of Iran's Revolutionary Guards, sent a message to Naim Qassam, Secretary General of Hezbollah, in which he claimed that, and I'm quoting, the ceasefire on the Lebanese front is a strategic failure for Israel. According to him, Israel has not even come close to achieving its goals in the war against Hezbollah. Salami noted that the ceasefire in Lebanon could mark the beginning of a cessation of the war in Gaza. I think that he's mistaken about Israel's failure, deeply mistaken. U.S. President Joe Biden approved a $680 million arms deal to provide Israel with precision weaponry. The Financial Times reported on this issue. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu cited the arms deal in a statement as the key reason for supporting the de-escalation agreement with Hezbollah, the ceasefire. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu decided that Israel will inform the International Criminal Court in The Hague that it is appealing the warrants for his arrest, and that of former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant on suspicion of war crimes. The decision was made at the last moment for an appeal to be accepted at the ICC. Israeli forces intercepted a drone that crossed from Egypt into Israel. Soldiers from the Karakal battalion were dispatched to the scene of the successfully downed drone, which was found carrying 4 rifles, 5 magazines, and hundreds of bullets. The incident is under investigation. Syrian rebels have seized control of the Aleppo International Airport. The opposition-affiliated Syrian news outlet, The Voice of the Capital, reported this. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, an opposition war monitor based in London, told Saudi TV Al Hadath that rebels in Syria have seized more than 120 towns and villages. Meanwhile, Al Jazeera reported Israeli artillery strikes on sites in the Syrian Golan. Syrian forces are retreating from the city of Hama, which is northwest towards Homs. According to all kinds of reports in Syria, there are tremendous things that are happening there. The withdrawal comes as rebels advance from Idlib, from the province and Aleppo, into the areas of the country untouched yet by the rebels. The Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi visited Damascus following the rebel offenses in Idlib and Aleppo. Saudi television, Al Hadath again, said that Araghchi also scheduled a visit for Turkey, whose border adjoins that rebel region in Syria. We've been thinking out loud about a lot today. Now that you know what I've been thinking, let me know what you're thinking. Email me at micah@jbstv.org. Tweet me at Micah Halpern. Tell me what you think. Before we end, let me leave you with one piquante piece of information. I want to show you a skit from Eretz Nehederet, which best translates as, "It's a wonderful country." It is a comedy show. It's Israel's Saturday Night Live. They have done some spectacular lampoons over the years, and especially now during the post-October 7th period. I've shown several skits in the past. This skit pokes fun at UNIFIL, who are peacekeepers in Lebanon. UNIFIL stands for United Nations Interim Forces in Lebanon. They are hardly peacekeepers or even observers. At best, they look the other way. At worst, they help the terrorists. This nearly 4-minute sketch pokes fun at the entire situation.
Hermoso. I love Lebanon.
Ah, très bien, Lebanon.
The mountains, just like the Pyrenees in España.
No, just like the Alps in France.
La Pyrenees en España.
Alps.
Pyrenees.
Alps!
Pero la puta madre, señor!
Alps! Ami.
Okay.
Let's not fight.
No fight.
After all, we are peacekeepers.
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 Sí.
Keeping the peace.
Amigo.
Excusez-moi, terrorist! You can't be here! You are ruining my painting.
Sorry, I go.
Calma. ¿Un vaso de vino?
Pourquoi non? It's only 11 in the morning, somewhere.
Salud.
Lebanon.
Así me gusta. ¿Pero qué es eso?
Merde! C'est pas possible.
Es una barbaridad.
Pardon.
Hamad.
Pardon, what
Ahmed.
do you think you are doing?
Sorry. It doesn't what it look like. We are building tunnels to attack Israel.
اذبح اليهود.
But why so much noise?
Yes. Can't you see we are trying to keep the peace here? We are peacekeepers.
Peacekeeper. هذا UNIFIL.
Sorry.
Excuse me, how much time it take to build the peace tunnel?
It will take 20 minutes approximately. يعني 20 minutes roof.
I don't trust these Arabs. When they say 20 minutes, it's last 3 hours. You know what I say? I say, let's go for a walk. A nice patrol.
Patrol. I love patrol. We go to patrol. Can you watch the weapons, please?
Gracias.
Yeah, we
Gracias.
patrol.
Yeah.
You weapon.
Gracias.
We patrol.
Gracias.
Yes. هذا مهبول.
Nice patrol, eh?
Nice patrol.
You know, this Lebanon wine is not so bad, but not like the Rioja.
Rioja. Only Sauvignon.
Only Rioja.
Sauvignon.
Rioja!
Sauvignon.
Amigo! Let's not fight, okay? We are peacekeepers.
Peacekeepers.
Hey. What do you think you're doing? What is this?
My son, I take him is very tired. Sleep.
It doesn't look like your son.
Because he looks like as a mother. 16.
Mother.
يلا يا محمد يلا جيب الأرض جيب.
Pero qué es eso? What is going on out here?
أنا رابط.
Rabbit.
يعني أرنب. What's up dog? رطططططا.
يلا يا حبيبي اطلع ربط اطلع برا
يلا يا بابا يلا. أنا ما نخسر بيحيروا.
Amigos, why argue? Make peace.
Yes, we are peacekeepers.
Salute.
Yes, and who will dig? I love peacekeepers.
أحلى بيزغيبه.
Thank you for thinking out loud with me, Micah Halpern. Let's think out loud again next week on JBS.